Welcome to How Tuesdays at Lori's Country Cottage. My name is Lisa. Today we're going to talk about different fusible adhesives used for appliqué. Join me in my sewing room. All right, I've chosen 6 of the most popular fusible adhesives to talk about today. I'm just going to run down quickly what they are, how they're similar, how they're different, and then I'm going to cut some samples and actually fuse them onto fabric, and we'll see what they look like after that first fusing. So first up is regular Steamacine. There's Steamacine and then there's Steamacine 2 Lite. So regular Steamacine has 2 paper sides. And the thing that's popular about Steamacine is once I stick it onto my fabric, this is tacky. So I can cut out my shape, lay it down, and then pick it up and move it, and it will stay. I can even work vertically on a wall. This Steamacine is a permanent bond after it's pressed the final time. It is a web attached to a paper backing, and you have to use steam for that final permanent bond. Steamacine is quite a heavy fusible product. So I actually don't use Steamacine because I find it quite heavy. I use Steamacine 2 Lite. So when I'm doing Laura Heine applique, this is what I use. It is, again, double-sided, paper backed, lighter weight than the regular. And again, the thing I like best about it is how it's tacky and repositionable, which is why I use it for Laura Heine collage. I can lay all my pieces down, pick them up and move them and not worry about something else moving in that same process. Now, something really interesting about the Steamacine, so they say steam in the title for a reason. There are 2 different kinds of glue. Adhesive, I should call it adhesive. The one adhesive, the first layer that you attach to the back of your fabric, is a different adhesive from the one that permanently attaches it when you are finally ready for the final pressing. And you need to use a lot of steam because that will dissipate that first glue and make it lighter and more pliable and flexible. So if you've ever used Lite Steamacine 2 and you felt like your needle was gumming up, all you need to do is go back and give it a really nice hot steam press to dissipate that first layer of glue, and then you won't have any problems with gumming up your needle. The next one is Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. Heat and Bond, again, is a web, comes on a roll. You can actually feel the webbing on the paper. Only one side paper, so when I fuse this to my fabric and then peel it back, it is not tacky. It will be loose and it's easy to move around. This again is a permanent bond when it's done. The nice thing about Heat and Bond is that it only takes a couple seconds to bond. The first time literally 2 seconds, and then when you're doing that second bond, 5 to 8 seconds will bond it. This is quite a heavy product. It can be used on wood and leather and cardboard. And they don't recommend that you sew this one. If you want to stitch your pieces down, you should use the Heat and Bond Featherlite. So this is just a sister product to the Heat and Bond, just a lighter weight. Again, it's a web. You can tell this is way lighter than the Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. Again, it's permanent. Don't use steam on either of these products. They just need a medium hot iron. And again, it really fuses quickly. Something really neat about the Heat and Bond Featherlite is that you can put it through an inkjet printer. So not laser printer and not photocopier, but an inkjet printer. And you can find those instructions online. Heat and Bond Featherlite is really nice if you're putting applique on clothing because as you wash it, it will soften up and become very pliable and light. All right, next up is Pellon's Pellon 805, which is the original fusible adhesive. It's Wonder Under. Nobody calls it Pellon 805. They call it Wonder Under. Again, it's a paper-backed fusible. You can hardly feel a fusible on here. This is a really, really lightweight product. This is what I used most before I switched to Steam-A-Seam and then Hot Fix later on. So this is really lightweight. Something interesting, they suggest for your final press to use a damp cloth on top and press for 10 to 15 seconds with some nice heat. I actually have never done that. I read it this morning and I have never pressed it with a wet cloth before, and I've never had problems. Wonder Under stitches really nicely. You'll never get a gummed up needle with Wonder Under. And then the last product we're going to look at today is Hot Fix. Now I have a whole how-to video on Hot Fix itself because it was new, and a customer wanted to know, really, is it really a permanent bond without stitching? So there's a whole how-to video on Hot Fix. So the different thing about Hot Fix is that this is not a web and there are no fibers. This is a sheet of glue on a paper back. So not only can this go through inkjet printers, but this can go through craft cutting machines like the Cricut and whatnot. So the other fusible products with fibers in sometimes don't work great with those craft cutting machines. This again is a permanent bond. Fabric does not fray. Go ahead and check out that how-to video. I approved it because I put it through the laundry quite a few times. All of these products can be laundered, but some of them, I don't see why you would use it on a project that would get washed. The important thing to know about Hot Fix is this takes a long time to fuse. You're doing like 15 seconds on your first fuse, and then when you go to do the permanent bond, you need another 15 to 20 seconds on the second side. If it's not completely fused, you go back and you fuse it again. So those are the 6 products we're going to look at. I'm going to cut some pieces. I'm going to fuse them onto the fabric, and then we'll come back and just see what's the hand like, how flexible is it. We'll be right back. Okay, I've done my fusing, so let's see what they look like. This is the Steam-A-Seam, the original Steam-A-Seam, and you can see how heavyweight that fabric is. Like it barely bends. It's not very pliable at all. It is really a heavy weight, but it is tacky, and so when I attach it to a second piece of fabric, it's not going anywhere, and that is the nice part about Steam-A-Seam. But quite heavy, and like I said, I don't use this. Here's the Steam-A-Seam 2 Lite. So this is way more pliable. It's soft. The fabric, it's really lightweight, and again, it's got that sticky back surface. So when I'm doing applique, my pieces aren't going to fall off. That is my fusible adhesive of choice for collages. Here's the Ultra Hold. Now this is really interesting. So it is quite crisp. You can see that it's not really squishable. It's almost rubbery on the back, so that's a lot of glue. And it because it's rubbery, although it's not sticky, it does hold a little bit. So your pieces wouldn't fly around, but they don't suggest you stitch through this. So, it has its own uses, something that you don't want to stitch or wash. And then the Heat and Bond Featherlite. Well, this is almost like there's nothing on here at all. Totally squishable. And again, it's got that little bit of rubbery feeling on the back. So it would help it stick a little bit, but not, it won't adhere. It's not repositionable. If you move it, something else is going to move at the same time, but it is really lightweight. Then we have the Wonder Under. Wonder Under, again, is just like that Featherlite, completely soft and pliable. It's not rubbery at all, and it's not sticking to anything. So my biggest worry about using Wonder Under for a collage or something like that is to have my pieces all laid out, and if you walk by and you nudge your fabric or a fan turns on, the pieces will just fly away because they are lightweight. and not stuck down at all. And then there's the Hot Fix. Hot Fix is definitely heavier than the Featherlite and the Wonder Under. I would say it's comparable to the Lite Steam 2. It's shiny on the back. That's not gonna, it's gonna fall off. That is not gonna stick at all. So a little bit heavier than the Featherweight, the Wonder Under, more like the Steam 2, but still nice and pliable. And then it does have that great feature that you don't need to stitch it down. It's a permanent bond and won't fray. So for our next little trial, I'm going to fuse my pieces. I have fused a second one onto a piece of fabric. I'm going to layer that up. We're going to stitch through and see how that goes. All right, I've made my little quilt sandwich. I've got them all labeled, and I'm just going to do some free motion on here, and then I'll give you some feedback when I'm all done. All right, here's some feedback on what I felt. This was the Steam, regular Steam was very dense to stitch through. I could feel that tugging. I wouldn't want to do any free motion on that. The Lite Steam 2 was beautiful. Didn't feel anything at all. You're not supposed to stitch through the Ultra Heat and Bond, so I just went straight through, and I don't know if you can see, but my machine was struggling just even to do that. The Featherlite Heat and Bond was no problem at all, really soft and easy to stitch through, as was the Wonder Under and the Hot Fix. So I have another little experiment to try. Let's move back to my cutting table. All right, I went back and I did a bit more free motion quilting on here just to get a better idea, make sure it was a true sampling. And so the Steam regular was pretty tough to stitch through. The Steam 2 Lite, the Featherlite Heat and Bond, and the Wonder Under, I would say, are all completely comparable. Just really lightweight. No, you didn't even feel anything when I was stitching. The Hot Fix is a little bit stiffer, but the stitches are beautiful and just slightly heavier than the other one. And again, the Ultra Heat and Bond, you're not supposed to stitch through anyway. So that's kind of my feedback on stitching. And now that it's layered, it's a bit easier to feel how they're different. So again, the lightest ones would be the Featherlite Heat and Bond and the Wonder Under. Maybe the Steam 2 Lite is just a little heavier, and then the Hot Fix is just slightly heavier than that. And then the Ultra Hold and the Steam regular are quite stiff, and you really wouldn't want to stitch them anyway. So I thought I'd do another experiment just to see how well do they actually adhere. So I've fused them to another piece of fabric and left some fabric unglued on the edges so I'd have something to hang on to. So let's start with the Steam. So it's completely glued on there. It's not going anywhere. And then the Steam 2 Lite. Oh, I didn't have that corner pressed. Again, that is stuck. I could peel it off if I wanted to, but I don't know why I would. Then the Ultra Heat and Bond. Yeah, that's fused. Like I'm tugging, it's not going anywhere. The Featherlite. Well, it peels off. not leaving any residue. I don't know why you'd peel it off. That doesn't really surprise me. It is really lightweight. Then the Wonder Under, this is Wonder Under. That's a pretty tight bond. I could peel it off if I wanted to. I think if I did, I would destroy the fabric. And then the Hot Fix. Hot Fix is completely stuck on there, which is what we would expect because again, Hot Fix suggests that you don't need to stitch it. So let's talk about why you would use one product over the other. Well, as I said with the Steam-A-Seam 2 Lite, that tackiness that you can stick it down and it's not going to fly all over the place is what I love about that. You can do a couple layers. You wouldn't want to layer too much because it would get kind of thick. The Ultra Hold Heat and Bond and the Steam-A-Seam Regular would be, I think, if you were just having one layer of applique on something and you weren't going to stitch it down, it wasn't going to get washed. That would be a really nice strong bond. It is kind of not flexible, so you'd want to think about where you're going to use it. The Featherlite Heat and Bond, the Wonder Under, are really lightweight. You could layer, you know, if you're doing an animal's body and then the face and then the ears and then the eyes, you could do a couple layers and still stitch through and have no problem with that. Same thing with the Hot Fix. And again, Hot Fix's best feature is that it's a permanent bond that does not need to be stitched. So if you're doing applique, sometimes you don't want to stitch down a billion pieces. So those are the 6 fusible adhesives that I tried out today. And I hope that that helps you choose which fusible product to use when you're doing applique on your next project. Thanks for joining me for How Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed seeing how different fusible adhesives perform for applique. As you saw in the video, I have some favorites, and it depends on the project I'm working with. I hope the video helps you choose which fusible adhesive for your next project. Now, don't forget to click the subscribe button below and ring the bell so you get notifications when we post more how-to videos. Thanks for joining me today.